Oh, why?
That is why.
What are you doing? Sport! I'm not fried, but I'm pretty toasted. If you know, for those of you who know what I was doing today, you will know the mood I'm in. I'm like in a really happy mood. But John Welch, on a more serious note, John Welch is under the weather. He had a little bit of a strong sore throat, so he will not be with us today. But don't worry, John is in our strong thoughts, and we hope for speedy recovery. Also, before we also start this week's episode, we're recording this on Friday, June 27th. The next episode we record will be on next Saturday, July 5th. Why? Because next Friday is the 4th of July, America's 249th birthday. So rather than do the show on a holiday, we'd rather wait the next day, which is why Friday and Saturday we're a little bit flexible. We mostly do Fridays, but we're keen on doing it on Saturdays whenever necessary. But anyways, I'm Matt Sirianni. That's Kevin Zolskowicz. That's Alec Nama. Gentlemen, how are you?
Feeling good, Matt. Ready to get the show on the road.
Yeah, we're doing excellent here. NHL draft is going on. Can't wait to cool down these heat waves because it's getting hot.
Yes, it is.
Oh, my God. In New Jersey, there's been like 105-degree days. Like,
jeez.
Like today was kind of an overcast, which was kind of needed because with 105-degree days, you needed an overcast or two. Rain a little bit here and there wasn't terrible, but it was much needed. Now, before we get into the actual sports stuff, I need to get something off my chest. So I mentioned that I did something significant today, and Kevin and Alec know where this is going. At Bar A in Belmar, New Jersey, they had the 3rd annual Summer Bash. Now, what's the Summer Bash? It's when Bar Anticipation, which is also the long version of Bar A, and ESPN Radio team up to have a little event there, or a big event, where a lot of people come in, sports fans across the tri-state area will come in, and who better to host this event and be the marquee people of this event than the guys of the Michael K. Show? Well, it's not really the guys of the Michael K. Show, but it's Michael K. and then Don Hahn and Rosenberg. Those two shows were at the forefront of this whole event. So I went there at Bar A. First thing I do, I park my car. Michael K's 20 feet in front of me. I wish I was joking. I'm like, what a start to my day. So as I'm getting out of the car and trying to get to the front and show my ID, I'm like, how can I talk to Michael K? Because he was talking to security guards when I was making my way in. I'm like, obviously I'm not going to interrupt him there. So I show my ID, I get inside, I get a free scratch off. And then Michael K is like talking to the crew of Bar A, yada, yada, yada. So he's walking this way. I'm like, hi, Mr. K. I shake his hand. And I'm like, oh my God, Mr. K, I've grown up listening to you for so many years. You're awesome. And he goes, oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that a lot. And then we took a picture, and there you go. The voice of the Yankees since 1992. Well, him and John Sterling, but John Sterling's more on the radio side. Michael K. Is the main guy of Yes. Kevin knows this because when Yes was founded in 2002, Michael K. was the main guy. And he is the main guy. So that was really, really awesome. Like, my childhood just took a picture. I was just like, oh, God. I'm still kind of starstruck. So that was part one. Part two, I got to see the setup of how Bar A put together the radio table, and they had a cover band in the background. There was a roof underneath over the table because obviously it was an overcast. God forbid, in case there was rain, you had to make sure all the equipment was intact. So I had access to the front row of watching the Michael K. Show. And this was before they checked credentials. Now, when they checked credentials, they had to kick me out of that little area because security guards can be such jerks sometimes. But it's okay. I had my time. But anyways, after Michael K's first half hour, because he was on for 2 hours, he was on for 2 hours, and then they took their first commercial break. Don LaGreca, who used to be part of the Michael K show, now he does his own thing with Alan Hahn and Pete Rosenberg. He was going out trying to get some food. There was like a little area where credentialed staff could grab food. But then Don LaGreca comes in front of me. I'm not going to waste this opportunity. So I talked to Don. I'm like, hey, Mr. LaGreca, you're awesome at what you do. Can I get a picture? And then, boom. But I wasn't done yet. So Pete Rosenberg was getting out of the bathroom. I was with Sammy at a table. We weren't invited to the credential area because we didn't have credentials. They were going to charge you like $110 to get a credential, to get extra food and extra benefits. And I'm like, nope, that's a lot. $110? No. Besides, I already snuck in a lot. So Pete Rosenberg was coming out of the bathroom. And as Sammy and I were having our little lunch, I go up to Pete Rosenberg and I'm like, I love your wrestling content. I love what you do for ESPN. I love what you did with Hot 97. And he was like, oh my God, I genuinely appreciate that you know my work. And then we took a picture. Boom! Give it a little peace sign. Now, the one thing that irritated me was that Pete Rosenberg, he asked me for my full name. I could have just said my first name, but he asked for my full name. And like I said my name was Matt Sirianni. And he says, like, are you related to Nick? And I've heard this question hundreds of times. And even if Pete Rosenberg was in front of me, I had to say no.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, if I had said yes, he would have told Nick Sirianni, and Nick Sirianni would have verified that we're not related, yada, yada, yada. But
the difference is the ends.
The difference is the ends, exactly. Yeah, one end in my name, two ends in his name.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, I have never been this starstruck in my entire life. Like, that is the gold bearer of sports radio in New Jersey, New York. Mm-hmm. And a couple friends of mine, I told them, they saw my pictures, and they were like, oh my God, that's a great radio station. I'd rather ESPN radio than WFAN. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about that or if you know about WFAN, but it's basically the rival sports station to ESPN radio. But I got to tell you, that was one heck of an experience. Michael K is actually really nice of a human being. Now, one thing I told Kevin Alec was back in 2020, I actually called into the Michael K show about Gio Urshela. I wish I asked Michael K that, but he was getting swarmed by people. Like, after I took a picture with Michael K, 12 people came over to him. After I took a picture with Don LaGreca, he literally skirted all the way to the food area. Same with Pete Rosenberg after he got out of the bathroom. But that was a very productive and amazing day. I was there for like 6 hours. I left at like 6:15 Eastern time. And here I am, like a little over an hour and a half later, doing this awesome show with my two good friends. But I just had to get that off my chest. So I was going to go into a big thing with Seattle sports and Washington sports and everything, but we'll get into that on a different show. But this had to be said.
Yeah, that's awesome, Matt. Like, I already told you, like, before we started recording that, like, I'm so jealous, dude. Like, you met so many, like, awesome people, like, just in this year. You met Kay, you met Rosenberg, you met Greca, you met Nick Jonas. Like,
yeah.
You met all these famous people.
In a span of 6 months.
Dude, you're just, like, you got places to be, people to meet. You're meeting all of them this year.
And you know what? I feel like I'm also in the right place at the right time. Now, I want to go back to the Michael K picture for a second. He's 6'4". For those of you who are unaware, I'm only 5'7". Look at the height gap. I'm at his shoulder.
That's a very, very stark height difference for those wondering.
All I can tell you is don't put me next to Aaron Judge.
Oh, good Lord. Don't
put me next to Aaron Judge. I will look like an infant.
Judge is a behemoth of a man.
He is 6'7", 282 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably be lucky to get to his chest. I know Kevin and I were talking like beforehand. We were like, well, Kevin's 5'11". I don't know how tall Alec is, but
5'7".
Oh, you're the same height as me. Okay. So Kevin said he was like, "Oh, I might be able to get up to Judge's shoulder. I'd be looking to get up to his chest."
Maybe.
Oh my god! But that was one hell of an experience. Like that's one not to forget, especially as a diehard Yankees fan. Like it was absolutely needed.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I'm happy for you.
Thank you, bud. Thank you. Okay, now that I got the jitters out, which was very much needed, I got the agenda in front of me. We're gonna talk some sports, folks. Let me pull up the agenda right in front of me, and we'll get a tab going. Okay, here we go. All right. We're going to get into the NBA first because the NBA Finals has officially concluded. The Oklahoma City Thunder are the new NBA champions. The first time they won the NBA title in Oklahoma. Now, the last time the franchise itself won a title was back in 1979 when they were the Seattle Supersonics. But their first title as the Thunder. So this is a big moment. However, it came with a little bit of luck. So early in Game 7, Tyrese Halliburton, who had been playing with a bum calf in the later stage of the NBA Finals, tore his Achilles in the late stage of the first quarter. And the Pacers were up by 1.5. It was a low-scoring first half. Like, if you bet the under, you were feeling pretty good about yourself. 48-47 at the half. But the Pacers were in control. Second half, TJ McConnell tried everything he could. But it wasn't enough. The Thunder won, I believe, 103-90, I think was the final score.
103-91.
103. Okay, I was close.
Yeah.
But you can. It's one of those things where you can imagine what would have happened if Tyrese Halliburton didn't get hurt.
Right.
Because a 12-point game, I mean, it's not a blowout. I mean, it's a few possessions, but the way the game was playing, first off, there were a lot of missed free throws in Game 7.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of missed free throws, a lot of turnovers. It was not a clean game whatsoever. But the Thunder took advantage of the fact that they were wounded. They didn't have Tyrese Halliburton, and the Thunder took advantage. They did just enough to win. And the Pacers, I mean, I kind of feel bad for them. Like you can see TJ McConnell got emotional. He was in the arms of a Pacers staff member who tried to shoo away the cameras. Pascal Siakam was crying on the bench. Tyrese Halliburton in crutches was trying to console his team. Reggie Miller came in the locker room to console the team. Like, it's hard. It's a tough pill to swallow. But as far as your takes on Game 7, I mean, I kind of gave it was not a clean game. Alec, what would you make of what you saw on Sunday night?
First, I want to give a shout out to the Pacers for one of the most surprising runs to the NBA Finals in recent memory. I didn't imagine anyone had them here. And many were questioning if they can take on a fully healthy team. They did so twice. They knocked out the Knicks, and they took the Thunder the distance here. Yet this feels like the most brutal loss, not only in franchise history, but you can make an argument that this is the most brutal loss in NBA history. They didn't just lose Game 7 of the Finals. They lost Halliburton potentially for all of next season because of that torn Achilles. The sprained calf was troubling him. It was clear he did not look like the same player that he was. Any given day, you can alternate between him and Pascal Siakam as the number one option. But this injury is a crusher. We know about the ability for the Pacers to avoid turnovers can be attributed to him. When he was on the bench, they turned over the ball right around league average. That's palpable against any other team, but not against the Thunder. Because the Thunder, they're going to make your life hell when you're averaging turnovers around the league average. And that they did. They made sure the Pacers did not have a chance at coming back. Try as they might in the fourth quarter. It felt like the game got away from them slowly, steadily. It was a slow and painful death. And this is what we know of OKC. They just play efficient basketball, left and right. We can talk about home court advantage, and home court advantage has been the tail of the tape in this NBA Finals. And it rained again in Game 7. Rarely people can talk of SGA's 8-27 shooting night, but 12 assist games with just one turnover, those games don't grow on trees. The only turnover he committed was after the 12 assists he got, and he put on an MVP caliber performance. This Thunder team, while every other team is caught up at the three-point revolution, the Thunder, they're hybridizing modern basketball with the 1990 Chicago Bulls. Less prioritization on the three, more prioritization on in-your-face defense and a killer mid-range shot that not only SGA has mastered, but also guys like Jalen Williams, Alex Caruso, everyone on the Thunder, they're learning more about the mid-range shot. It's a perfect combination of old school and new school. The scary part, they're not done. We can realistically see them back here next year. And potentially a title defense, maybe even a dynasty with the litany of draft picks they accumulated could be in the vision. Congratulations to the Thunder. Congratulations to SGA, Jalen Williams. But most importantly, congratulations to Mark Daigneault and Sam Presti. These two are the masterminds behind this business. Well done.
I mean, seriously, one thing I gotta say is that this Thunder team won 20 games a few years ago. And what did they do? They drafted extremely well. They got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in probably the biggest fleece of a trade in modern NBA history when they acquired him from the Clippers. And all they've done is just get stud after stud after stud in the draft, and even through picks. I mean, they've done everything right the last few years. 2023, you felt like they were turning a corner when they made the play-in tournament. 2024, number one seed in the NBA, failed to make the NBA Finals. This year, they're champions. I got to tell you, from a team that won 20 games in 2022, this is a big, big turnaround. And I got to give Thunder management credit. I mean, they stuck to their plan. They had an agenda. They executed to perfection. And like Alex said, this could be a dynasty because this team is young.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't a team of veterans. This is all young studs.
Yeah. And to think that we were laughing at the Lakers for giving up Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, and draft picks for Anthony Davis, who helped to win that championship. And speaking of the championship, Alex Caruso. He's part of those two championship teams, and his impact was very noticeable on both of them.
Yeah, well, Caruso's a big story because I know John put up a story about Caruso was part of, I think, the Thunder's G League team 9 years ago.
Yep.
And
they coached by Daigneault.
By Daigneault, exactly. So it came in full circle. So good for Alex Caruso. Kevin, what are your takeaways from the conclusion of this NBA Finals?
Okay, so first of all, I want to say congratulations to the Thunder, Mark Daigneault, SGA, and company, and all that. And second of all, yes, I do feel bad for the Pacers, even though I'm a Knicks fan and it knocked my team out. I got to give like some sympathy here, especially for Tyrese Halliburton. Yeah, I have like a rule of thumb whenever I like watch a player or like a team. If you tick me off, that's a good thing. That's a sign of respect. So Tyrese Halliburton is one of the guys that ticked me off in this postseason. So good job. So you got my respect there. Second of all, when I was watching that game with my dad, like he immediately called it. It was like, that's an Achilles. I'm like, yep, yeah. It's such a gruesome looking injury, and you never want to see a guy go down like that. So prayers up for Tyrese Halliburton. I wish him a speedy recovery, but not too fast. But anyways, yeah, give Pacers a ton of credit. Like I'm one of those people that didn't have them here like at all. I thought they were going to get knocked out first round whenever we first started doing that NBA and NHL bracket challenge. I had the Pacers knocked out the first round by the Bucks. So and they've played incredible defense this entire postseason. They forced turnovers a ton throughout the course of every one of their games, and they're never out of it. They play with each other. They play like they're going to win every single time. T.J. McConnell is such a beast whenever Tyrese Halliburton is on the bench. He's just so fast and elusive whenever he drives to the lane, picks up a mid-range shot, goes baseline. He can get any shot you want, and he steals inbounds passes, which not many NBA players do or like even think of. But T.J. McConnell is one of those players who I caught my attention immediately in this postseason. I think he was one of the big factors in this postseason why they got that far. And Siakam and Turner, they play great defense underneath the rim. And Tyrese Halliburton, when he's able to, he gets to be clutch sometimes, like whenever it's the last miracle shot. That happened in game one in the Knicks series, and it happened in game one of this past series. And but it's also interesting when you consider the fact that this Thunder team, like you mentioned, like they were not a good team like a couple of years ago. And well, they drafted well. They got that Paul George trade for SGA and like Gallinari and like a million picks might be might be just as bad as the Luka Doncic trade at this point, because it's so bad how Paul George is not the same player that he was whenever that trade happened before that. And now SGA is like all the talk now. And he completed the triple
crown.
crown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He won the league MVP, the West Conference Finals MVP, and the NBA Finals MVP. Like that's unheard of, and it's the first since Shaq, I believe. If that, correct me, Alec, if I'm wrong.
Yeah. When we speak of not just league MVP and finals MVP, but we also have to mention regular season scoring title too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Fourth player in league history, joining Shaq, Michael Jordan, and I believe Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's elite company.
Yeah.
And also, I'm so happy for my guy Isaiah Hartenstein. As the Knicks fan, I was sad to see him go and then not to extend him, but to see him win an NBA championship, I was very happy for the guy. So congrats, Cy Hart. I wish you were back here, but obviously you got bigger plans in OKC. And like OKC is going to be like a good team in the future, and they're definitely going to be one to look at next season.
They're going to be a really scary team for years to come because they have done so much research in free agency and in the draft. They pressed all the right buttons and it worked. But I mentioned the word fleece. This is a fleece. And Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, I think, had one of the greatest single season performances by a player in NBA history. Because conference finals MVP, it's a fairly new thing now. I mean, we haven't really had that in years past. We started at what, in 2023, 2024? We started this conference finals MVP. I know the Eastern Conference Finals MVP was also around the same time. It was only like 2 or 3 years ago that they started this. But again, the Thunder, this was a complete team effort. And honestly, if you look at all 16 teams that made it into the postseason this year, they were the best. Like at one point, their average margin of victory was 25 points a game. That's like piss your pants scary. I'm serious. But this Thunder team, I think they have more left in the tank. I don't think they're done. I think they got a lot more coming for them because the problem is the Western Conference is still a good conference. I think the Timberwolves with Anthony Edwards, they're still going to be a threat. I think the Lakers, now they're going to get a full season with Luka. I'm curious how that's going to go. And then, you got other teams like the Rockets on. They got Kevin Durant. Who knows how that's going to pan out. So there's still a whole – the Western Conference is hungry. Everyone in the West is hungry to win a title and knock off the Thunder. Now, on the contrary, the Eastern Conference Finals side, if you're a Knicks fan, you're licking your chops right now because Tyrese Haliburton and Jason Tatum are done. They're not playing next season. Yep. The Knicks better be the number 1 seed or else.
They better, because you have no Tatum and no Haliburton in your way. The only guys you're going to have to beat that's going to be in your way are Donovan Mitchell and Cade Cunningham for the majority part. There should be no excuse for the Knicks not to get to back to the East Finals at least next season.
Not even Paolo Banchero.
No,
Banchero is a good player, but like I feel like Magic I'm not quite as high on. I need to see how they play over the course of the season.
Yeah, but they did get Desmond Bain.
They did.
Right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Oh my God. So we mentioned Kevin Durant being part of the Thunder. Let's discuss that for a second because we knew Kevin Durant wanted out of Phoenix. The writing was on the wall again. And he basically was like, all right, I need to change the scenery. So he gets traded to Houston Rockets. And in return, the Phoenix Suns will get Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and multiple draft picks. Alec, I know, was the first person in our group chat to say something about this because this is Alec's team. What's your takeaway from all that?
All right.
Oh, God.
He's getting a Rockets hat, Rockets jersey.
Dang, it doesn't even fit my headset. But, yep. Honestly, I'm not mad at this one. I'm going to take this out because it's not even fitting my headset a bit. But, well, it was more of a shot, though. But honestly, I'm not even mad. Initially, I said I want Booker. But looking at this more and more, that every detail that passes by with this, it makes more sense for both the Rockets, and with Common Malowich getting taken 10th overall, it makes more sense for Phoenix. Let's start with Houston, because you could say that we were in the best position to land his services for the next step of championship contention. That series against the Warriors, it left us with someone that needs to take the last shot, or is willing to take the last shot, and more of a half-court scoring punch. We play with our heads above the water in year one of this playoff window. It tends to run dry when you realize that we average more points per missed shot on second chances, and that doesn't bode well for teams that are looking to establish a clear playoff window. KD is not expected to be what he was in OKC, but we don't need it to be. He's still as good as anyone when creating his own shot. The key here is he stays healthy. Availability is always the best ability. When you look at players with a usage rate of 28% or higher in at least 500 minutes, there's only one player with a better true shooting percentage than KD. You can look right to the man wearing the number 15 in Denver. Yeah. I'm not naming him because we already know his name and by this point, and he needs no introduction. And also, while Jalen Green, I wanted to know that if he's going to take the next step, but it just never materialized. And outside of Game 2 against Golden State, he had an abysmal series against the Warriors. And that series sealed his fate out of here. And it's bittersweet, but even more bittersweet is Dylan Brooks. He and Fred VanVleet have been the driving veteran faces to turn around the culture of the Rockets defense. Brooks is what you call a pest. Someone who can get in your face defensively and even get under your skin, much like what Draymond Green does with the Warriors, and different sport, what Brad Marchand does previously with the Bruins and now for the Panthers. But now, with this trade, not only do we get someone who can take the last shot, but the other key young players also stick around. They can learn from the player who is willing to take the last shot, because these young cats here, they need to learn how to take the last shot and to establish themselves as key driving forces in the clutch. We also get to keep Amen Thompson, our premier defensive player, and it opens up more playing room for Jabari Smith and Tari Eason. You can alternate between the two of them at the 4. Eason can see elevated time as a secondary key defensive presence. And you know who gets more minutes too? Reed Shepherd and Cam Whitmore. They're the beneficiaries of having roster spots open up to get more opportunities. That's pending if neither of the two of them are packaged in a deal. If we can improve the roster for, I know it's ambitious to say Jaylen Brown, but a more realistic player would be, sorry if I'm saying this, Matt, Cam Johnson. It'll be a realistic. I'm going realistic here, but Shepherd provides backcourt creation beyond VanVleet. Whitmore is talented scoring wise, yet he has to be consistent. And Easton is a more impactful defender than Brooks. He needs to develop his offensive game. And outside pick 10, we also get to keep our future first round picks. I like this trade all around for the Rockets. One could say it's a win-win, but I'm curious to see what the Suns do at center between Malowich and Mark Williams.
I mean, the Rockets are taking a little bit of a gamble here. I mean, getting Kevin Durant. The only thing you got to worry about with Kevin Durant is whether he gets his head on straight, because this is a guy who is very easily irritated when things don't go his way. It happened in OKC. It happened in Brooklyn. It happened in Phoenix. And now here he is again. So the main thing with me, I think the Rockets are still going to be a good team. They'll probably be a top 3 seed in the Western Conference. They still got a lot of talent. But Kevin Durant's going to be the biggest player to keep an eye on in many ways. But I still think this Rockets team can put together. I mean, Dylan Brooks is a really impactful player. Jalen Green just wasn't good enough in Houston. Now they get a chance to reset. The Cam Johnson aspect of it all that you mentioned, I think that's interesting. Brooklyn's not going to go anywhere this year, so they'll probably deal some players eventually. But Cam Johnson's good. I also hear that Nick Claxton could be on the market, but I don't think the Rockets really need Nick Claxton, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no. We're already set with Şengün and Steven Adams at the center depth.
Yeah. So, but like Cam Johnson is an interesting name that could be targeted by somebody. I think whoever gets Cam Johnson might be lucky. Like I said, you can pick off of Brooklyn all you want. I really don't care anymore. I really don't. This team was literally a toe from winning an NBA title, and then they just ruined it. God damn it, Kevin Durant sneakers.
Size 18.
Size 18. Oh my God. But we also had another trade, and this is one of a few trades coming from the Boston Celtics. This one involves Drew Holiday being traded to the Portland Trailblazers. This was in a 3-team deal, I believe. Another trade involved Kristaps Porzingis, but the Celtics are going to continue to deal away players. Now, why is this happening? Part of it could probably be because of, like we said, the Jason Tatum injury. This team might not be good next year. But, Kevin, why do you think the Celtics are content with dealing people away already?
Well, I think it's because, I think the Tatum injury is definitely a huge part of it. I think another big part of it is that they're trying to deal players away so they can clear a lot of cap space. Because with dealing Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, I think they cleared like $180 million something of like cap space. So So the Drew Holiday deal was purely a money move. Same thing with Kristaps Porzingis. I wasn't quite sure what the depth chart would look like at center for them. I mean, I know they have like a few guys that can play center for them. Probably Cornette is going to stay if they choose to keep him. And who knows if they're going to even deal Al Horford next. I mean, I heard one of the guys that they were going to deal. And they've been getting a ton of offers for Derek White and Jaylen Brown, obviously. Don't know why they would trade either of them at this point, because losing Porzingis and Holiday, you're losing a vital piece of what got you that championship in last year, 2024. So Porzingis was a big part of that, and then you lose him because you want to clear cap space, but you also want to get another scorer to kind of replace Tatum, and hopefully Anthony Simons for them in that Porzingis trade can be the guy next to Brown for the time being. I know Anthony Simons was like a premier scorer with the Blazers, but I'm just not sure if he's on the same caliber as Tatum is. We'll have to see about that. Also, remember when the Boston Celtics got sold to this billionaire? I feel like that maybe he was a big reason why this happened as well. I think he wanted to clear a lot of cap space and try to revamp the core just a little bit, but also keep the guys that are going to remain there. I feel like they're not going to trade Brown or White. I refuse to believe that.
I don't think they should.
Those two guys got to stay. I feel like Holiday was definitely disposable. Porzingis surprised me a little bit because, like I said, you need to have a premier big man to win championships. The Thunder had one and the Pacers had two. They had Turner and Siakam and they had Holmgren and Hartenstein. You need to have at least that one guy that can protect the rim and can get yourself easy buckets underneath. And right now, for the Celtics, the only guys that they really have is Luke Cornette and Xavier Tillman. And that's a downgrade from what you had in Porzingis. So I'm really curious to see if they go for a big man or via trade or whatnot. But I would be surprised if they trade away Horford for somebody, if they want to go for a dynamic shooter or they want to get another center. So I'm curious to see what the Boston Celtics do. But it's a very interesting case.
I think Al Horford has a good case to be on the trading block. Yeah. I agree with you about Jaylen Brown and Derek White. You cannot touch those guys. Mm-hmm. Because if the Boston Celtics want to remain relevant in 2025, 26, they need to at least have a couple good players.
Right.
And the clearing $180 million in cap, I mean, that's just a massive amount of money that you could use to acquire anyone you want. Now, I don't know if the Boston
exact number, that's an approximation.
Approximate number. Yeah. But it's still significant, because if the Celtics want to sign a big time free agent or even get someone via trade at the deadline next year, whatever they decide to do, this leaves them the option to do that, because now you saved so much money and you have enough money to pay a big time free agent. Now, for me, the Boston Celtics are still a good team. I agree with the Al Horford thing, because I think Al Horford's best days are behind him. I've seen Al Horford for many years, and he's more of a off the bench contributing type of guy, more so than a key starter, if that makes any sense. So
yeah, it does. Because of the various injuries to KP, Boston had no choice but to put him in the starting five from time to time. But age is catching up to him.
correct, exactly. So another thing that I want to get into is the NBA draft. We had the NBA draft not too long ago on Wednesday and Thursday, exactly. And I want to go over who went in round one. So obviously, number one pick of the draft, not surprised, Cooper Flag. Nico Harrison better take advantage of this and actually build momentum on Cooper Flag, or else we're going to accuse him of being on more drugs. But
Oh, you already have me thinking.
oh god. Otherwise, you might as well just get Michael K on a home run call.
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness.
Number two was Dylan Harper, who was a guard out of my alma mater, Rutgers University. He went to the San Antonio Spurs. This is actually good. So for those of you who didn't know much about Dylan Harper, he's the youngest son of Ron Harper Sr., who was on 5 championship teams, 3 with the Bulls, 2 with the Lakers. This kid, Dylan Harper, can do a little bit of everything. He can drive, he can shoot the 3 ball, he can facilitate, he can create plays. And the Spurs needed a good guard play because outside of Victor Wembanyama, they really don't have any other small guards that can help their offense. So I think Dylan Harper's good for that. The Sixers went with VJ Edgecombe out of Baylor with the 3rd overall pick. Con Gnipple of Duke went to the Charlotte Hornets. Another Rutgers player, Ace Bailey, went to the Utah Jazz. You'll pair him with Lowry Markkinen. Trey Johnson of Texas went to the Wizards at 6. Why is Washington this low on the draft board?
Collusion.
Big time collusion. That you just said the key word to Sirianni Said Sports Fantasy. Collusion.
Yes, sir.
Oh my god. The Pelicans took Jeremiah Fears out of Oklahoma. The Nets took Igor Demin out of BYU. I hardly even heard of this guy. The Raptors took Colin Murray Boyles out of South Carolina. I know a lot about this guy. This guy is actually very dynamic for his size. Duke had, I think, 4 or 5 players go in the first round. Well, 4 or 5 overall. They had 3 in round 1, and they had, like, I think, 2 or 3 in round 2. Duke had a really good day on over the draft.
Very good day. Yes. All the starters got drafted.
Impressive. Now, if I had the extended footage of Kevin cheering on Houston after they beat Duke, I could share that, but this is a PG-13 show, so I really can't share that.
Right. You would have to cut it off at a certain part where I go kind of off the rails.
Yeah, you would have cut that off.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. But ultimately, I want to give a shout out to Rutgers because Rutgers had 2 men go in the top 5, which is really, really amazing considering that Rutgers is kind of a bottom feeder in the Big Ten. I mean, the Big Ten is a really good basketball conference, but Rutgers is really well coached. I mean, Steve Peichel's still the head coach there, but the problem I have with this is that we just got these 2 guys. This was their freshman year. I'm losing my voice already. But like, it's annoying. I know, like, we had Jake Hogger on the show one time when we were under a new brand, under a different brand, but I hate it when we have freshman year guys who are so talented and then they leave.
Mm-hmm.
It's annoying as hell. And Rutgers is going to be mediocre. Is going to be mediocre next year because even with their 2-star freshmen, they still stunk. They were only 11th in the Big Ten. Now they're going to be putrid now, and I think Steve Peichel might get fired for that, which is unfortunate because as a Rutgers alum, I expect more. But it's unfortunate. It all started when they were up by 10 against Houston in the second round of the NCAA tournament in 2021, and then Rutgers just did a Tyrese Halliburton or Reggie Miller.
I do remember. I was stressed during that game.
So was I, bro. So was I. Oh man. But the draft was, I guess, pretty successful for Duke in many instances. But as far as also another really good player, Derek Queen out of Maryland went to the Atlanta Hawks. This is actually an interesting pick. You want to know why? Because Trae Young, we know him being a short guy, but has a lot of talent. Derek Queen, I don't know if you've seen footage of this guy. This is a big boy. He comes from Baltimore, Maryland. He had the game-winning bucket against Colorado State in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Very quick for his size, very nimble on his feet. So I think Atlanta got a big one there. But as far as the NBA draft is concerned, like the overall outlook, I mean, what would you guys say? Who won the draft? Would you say? I'm gonna start with Alec.
Now wait a minute, because Derek Queen, he's going to New Orleans.
Excuse me, my
got
bad.
traded.
My bad.
Nonetheless, about who won the draft, I feel what San Antonio is doing, they're getting key young talent, and not only with Dylan Harper, but also Carter Bryant in this draft. Right after they got Stephon Castle in last year's draft. And I know some of my Spurs friends are saying, why do we trade away Rob Dillingham? Well, I know Stephon Castle won Rookie of the Year, and they're banking on the development of him. Yeah. What San Antonio is going to do is add more help to a young core that is built around Victor Wembanyama. All right, you just missed out on Kevin Durant, but you want to build on a young foundation to build on the youth movement. Wembanyama, Castle, Harper's going to add on to this young core.
Yes.
And with Chris Paul potentially leaving for either free agency or, I don't want to say the one word that is floated around, retirement.
Yes.
But it were to be free agency or retirement, you already have an established foundation with Wembanyama, Stephon Castle at the 2. You have Devin Vassell, who was in the starting lineup, and you just got De'Aaron Fox at the trade deadline. The foundation's already there. At this moment, Harper can be coming off the bench, and you could use him from that point. And everyone that you accrued, this is still a young team that's only up from here. What I want to know is if it's going to get the necessary improvements defensively, because the Spurs, they still have a lot, and I mean a lot of work to do defensively.
Yeah. The Spurs are a work in progress for sure. I mean, they have potential. They have potential to do well. I mean, they got arguably the best young star in the NBA, Victor Wembanyama. I like the Dylan Harper draft pick, and Carter Bryant and all the other pieces they acquired in the draft over the last couple of days. But I want to go to Kevin next before I reveal my winner. Who do you think came out on top this draft?
So I had 3 teams that I was picking about who had the best draft. First one was the Spurs, like from all the points that Alec mentioned. 2, I would say Utah Jazz. I think they had a really good draft. I mean, they drafted Ace Bailey and Walter Clayton Jr., who won the championship. I hate his guts, but he's going to be paired well with Ace Bailey. But I think that the team that had the best draft, I think it's the Charlotte Hornets, honestly, because look at who they drafted. They drafted Con Kneppel at number 4, Liam McNeely at number 29, Sion James, another guy from Duke, so Kneppel and James are going to reunite, and Ryan Kalkbrenner for number 34 from that trade with Boston. I'm surprised that Boston didn't jump on Kalkbrenner when they had the chance, but I think the Charlotte Hornets had a fantastic draft, and I think in terms of building up an established core, I think that the Spurs technically had the better draft, but in terms of the flashy picks and the names, I really like the Hornets draft in this case. Like, you get 3 guys even, who are solidified scorers in Kneppel, McNeely, and James, and you have another guy underneath it in Kalkbrenner with losing that Robert Williams underneath, and you pair them all together with LaMelo Ball, who's already a good scorer for the Charlotte Hornets. Like, I see this team scoring a lot this season if all the chemistry is there. So I think the Hornets won this draft.
The Hornets had a really solid draft. I might agree with you on that one but I just want to see the Hornets do something.
Right.
That's the ultimate goal. You drafted really well. I thought Ryan Kalkbrenner was like probably the biggest underrated pick of this entire draft.
Big steal,
and the fact that he fell to Charlotte, I think, was crazy.
Yeah.
Now, another pick. Now, if you want to know how the Brooklyn Nets did, for those of you who care, we did get one decent pick. We got Danny Wolf from Michigan, who formerly played at Yale. So he's a nerd. I love nerds.
So Danny Wolf
Ivy
is a
League
solid
school for the win.
Exactly. But no, Danny Wolf is actually kind of a good pick as far as the Brooklyn Nets are concerned, because if we do trade away Nick Claxton, which is possible because of all the rumors that I'm hearing about where he might end up, at least Danny Wolf is young and he can give you size inside. Like, for those who watched him, yeah.
Keep in mind, Matt, you also have Drew Timmy still on the Brooklyn Nets roster, even though he's only played a few games toward the end of this season. You have Timmy as well. So you have Timmy and Wolf who can get you guys underneath if you lose Claxton.
Yeah, that's right. I keep forgetting about Drew Timmy.
Because he played with injury.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. He literally disappeared for a good amount of time. I can't believe we still have him. But the Brooklyn Nets still have a lot of work to do. Like I said, I can't see this team going anywhere in the long run. But overall, it was a good NBA season. We have a lot of other sports to get into. Unfortunately, the NHL is done too. Actually, we'll get into the NHL because while the hockey play is frozen, pun intended, the news amongst the NHL is actually fast and furious, including a new CBA, which was announced at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And I know Alec has been all over this. So while I was out taking pictures with Michael Kay, I know Alec was on top of this. Alec, what was the new CBA?
I mean, in the hours leading up to the draft, we already got a new CBA. The Oilers trading away Evander Kane. John Tavares returning to the Leafs. We had Sam Bennett returning to the Panthers. Utah fleecing Buffalo and getting J.J. Peterka. Noah Dobson on a draft day trade to the Canadiens. And then you have this is CBA. So let's get on the details.
Yes.
First, you got a new schedule for a regular season, which is 84 games. And people are going to mention about player health, player safety, this. The way I see things, if you pay attention to divisional games, it's not even. For the norm here is that divisional rivals should play each other 4 times per season. But because there are 32 teams in the league, in at least one series, you have 2 teams that are in the same division. They're playing each other 3 times per season. You want to even it all out, so as to give those 2 teams the extra game. That's for both of them. Let's put it like this: 7 times 4 is 28. Let's start off with the math. So now that you have the 7 teams, they're playing each other 4 times inside the same division. You already have it established that for in-conference play between different divisions, it is 3 games per season. 8 times 3 equals 24. And for interconference play, it is twice that these 2 teams would go up against one another. 16 times 2 equals 32. Now let's add this all together. What do you get adding 28, 24, and 32? You get 84. So that's how so it's a game of math in this discussion. So you got to be thinking about the regular season talks. The maximum player contracts are going to be shortened from 8 years to 7 years. And for unrestricted free agents, from 7 years to 6 years. It's better for players that are in their prime or just about to enter their prime. The consequence is that they'll get larger terms on their cap hits, but this is because of the rising salary cap and salary floor over the years. So this part is not going to be an issue. This summer, we're likely going to see the last of what we're seeing from 8-year deals and 7-year deals on unrestricted free agents. The third part is that the LTIR loophole is going to be closed. They're going to make a new comprehensive playoff salary cap system. So the main 20-player roster that teams have to submit in the playoffs has to be compliant with the cap. Tampa, Vegas, and Florida all won the Stanley Cup by exploiting this loophole. It's become an issue that's too much to look. And I can get the annoyance from some of the fans, but, well, I'll have to say, teams with their rosters are going to be cap compliant come playoff time. They can change their roster from time to time, but they just have to be sticking under the cap. So that's to prevent another Tampa, Vegas, or Florida situation that's took place. The irony here is that Tampa was one of the original teams advocating for the LTIR loophole to be gone here, because the Chicago Blackhawks, the team that they faced a decade ago in the Stanley Cup final, they did this exact thing. Even teams that didn't win the Stanley Cup, they exploit this loophole. You can look right at Toronto Maple Leafs and the Colorado Avalanche in doing this. I apologize to Avs fans because it hurts saying this when you look at Gabriel Landeskog's comeback. It's inspiring, yet it's heartbreaking when you realize this loophole. Fourth, I know Kevin's celebrating about this one, no deferred salary.
Yeah.
They're tackling on this issue. Yeah, they're tackling on an issue before it even becomes prominent around the league. They're seeing what's going on with the MLB and with deferred salary. They want to make sure that none of this happens in the NFL before it's commonplace. There is one contract that's deferred salary of note, Frank Vetrano with the Anaheim Ducks. And deferred salary actually lowers the cap hit of players' salaries. It's an example of significantly more stringent contractual limitations expected to be in place in the CBA. Draft pick signing rights are going to universally expire when players turn 22 years old. In other words, if you have a player that's in any one of the free leagues of the CHL, such as the OHL, QMJHL, or the WHL, if you have an 18-year-old as drafted from any one of those free CHL leagues, but he decides to play for an NCAA team, that means that a team will still hold his rights for 4 years. That should be the standard for all teams and players. If he does not sign his entry-level contract before he turns 22, his draft signing rights expire, and as such, he's going to be a free agent. That should be the norm. There's going to also be a significant increase for Stanley Cup playoff bonuses. It's well established that the only players eligible for playoff bonuses are players that are entry-level contracts and players who are 35 or older. Wow. It coincides with the rising salary cap. Though players don't get a separate salary for the playoffs, the league actually prohibits teams from giving their players playoff bonuses for making the playoffs, winning rounds, and even winning the Stanley Cup. But still, players still get compensation for a playoff appearance, because this is what is known as the playoff bonus pool that's distributed to 16 playoff teams based on how far they advance. It's called the Player Fund, formally listed on Article 28 on the current CBA. The 7th point is full-time emergency backup goaltenders. And this is important because if both the starter and the backup goaltender are injured in the same game, each team should have an emergency backup goaltender who is ready. But we have seen this on part-time basis. I remember that the Carolina Hurricanes, they used 2 emergency backup goaltenders in the last decade. Their own equipment manager, Jorge Alves, and most famously, David Ayres, Zamboni driver extraordinaire. Every team needs to have a full-time emergency backup goaltender in the case that both the starter and the backup are injured in the same game. The last point is the mandatory dress code is abolished for all 32 teams. And I like this because it allows players to express themselves free without having to face repercussions for what they are allowed to dress. What if I want to tell you that before the Winter Classic or the Stadium Series that the Panthers or Lightning, they want to come out onto the outdoor games dressed in beachwear and cold weather. This is when you abolish the mandatory dress code before they get onto their their jerseys and their uniforms for the game.
Wow. And you also forgot one thing. They will be mandatory neck guards entering the 26-27 season.
Thank goodness. I'm glad that you mentioned that, Matt, because the neck guards, well, I did post this as before we start this episode into the recording, but neck guards are now mandatory for all 32 teams.
Good.
This is huge. While we're seeing players are starting to wear neck guards, this should be mandated for every team because we need to prevent an Adam Johnson tragedy from happening ever again. Because it was a tragic accident what happened to him at the UK hockey league that he played between him and Matt Petgrave. It was tragic. It was tragic, and we should not have to witness this ever again. I'm glad the NHL is taking the steps necessary to address the player's safety, because you never know if a hit is going to be so violent that lifts that player up into the air and the skate accidentally clips one apart the body, such as the stomach, shoulder, or I can't even believe I may say this, the neck.
Yeah. Honestly, if there's a worse body part to injure in any sport, it's your freaking neck.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
If I would rather injure my arm or my toe or even my shoulder, not my neck. If you injure your neck in hockey, done. Because these guys are flying all across the ice and they're hitting each other. If you get, like, God forbid, if I forearm somebody and it hurts their neck and their the cervical cord in the neck, that's almost life-threatening.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I'm glad the NHL is taking these steps with the neck guards, because safety matters more than anything. And you can make the argument hockey is the toughest sport in the world, arguably. Because while, yes, they say the NFL is tough, and I understand it's kind of mellowed over the years as far as, like, toughness in football. I mean, things. Well, now it's the no fun league. Well, many people call it the no fun league in the NFL, but the NHL is just tougher in my opinion. The way the players are coming at each other, the way that there's constant action for an entire 60 minutes. The NFL is just kind of dumbed down as far as, like, action and pace. That's why the NHL is more brutal. But the fact that we're adding neck guards for protection, that's essential. Yeah.
I owe Gary Bettman an apology because I was not familiar with his game.
Yeah. Gary Bettman, has made a name for himself as commissioner of the NHL. He's done a lot of really good things.
Yeah. I mean, at this rate, it's not a question that between the 4 commissioners in the 4 major North American professional sports, I think Bettman is number 1.
Yeah, arguably. I put Bettman at number 1, and I probably put, oh God, the other 3. I probably put Adam Silver 2, because he somehow gets the players and the owners to agree on everything. Roger Goodell is 3, and then Rob Manfred's 4.
That's the correct ranking.
On 1,000% that order. Rob Manfred needs to take notes from Gary Bettman, especially with that the deferred contracts banned. Ban that, because I think Gary Bettman saw them like, this is ridiculous. And, like, yes, don't do that in your league. And he's taking safety precautions with the neck guards. He's doing all those stuff with the contracts and the draft rights for younger players when they turn 22. That's fair. And, like, it's better for the sport. So guys like Manfred definitely need to take some notes.
Now, Rob Manfred also has a chip on his shoulder because next year the MLB CBA negotiations will be going down. And for those of you who remember how the CBA negotiations went in 2022, well, they went as well as me stretching my arm back and trying to touch my foot. Not well. But in all seriousness, like, the players and owners, they were acting like children during these CBA talks. We did baseball for 99 days because the players and owners were, it was like the Spider-Man meme where they were, like, pointing at one another. And I say this all the time. My Uncle Anthony says this all the time. They were like anchovies. Like, one side was saying, ee, and the other side, ee. And then Rob Manfred's just kind of sitting there, letting this all go down, and he's not taking action. And keep in mind, Rob Manfred's under contract until 2029. And then after 2028, he's gone.
Good. It'll be a good day when he's gone.
Good. Exactly. Good. Because this guy's ruined Major League Baseball in many ways. And honestly, I don't know who the new commissioner is. I hope it's Joe Torre.
Oh, jeez. I mean, I can imagine that.
In a good way or a bad way?
No, in a good way. Because, like, I fully trust in that guy, except for Rob Manfred, definitely.
Yeah. I miss the Bud Selig days. Rob Manfred, not it. not it. He even handled the COVID season poorly. Because remember, during the COVID season, Rob Manfred also just sat there on his hands, watching the players and owners say, "Oh, we won 81 games. Oh no, we won 72. Oh no, we won 75." Oh, no. Calm down. Be adults about this.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to get baseball back. You're not going to solve anything by arguing like 5-year-olds.
Mm-hmm. The one thing he did, I'll say, Matt, was the pitch clock. That was necessary. That brought a new quickness to the game that got people more engaged because we're not going to have like 20 inning games anymore, which yeah, it takes a long time. It takes like 5 hours. Like if you want to stay up all night watching.
Oh God.
So, and then he did something stupid right after that, which was have the ghost runner rule, like after 9 innings. I still am not a fan of that rule.
I don't like that either. But what also annoys me about banning the shift was good. I'll give him that. Yeah. But Rob Manfred, I think the way he handled the Oakland A's was also really bad, and just his attitude towards the A's. Like this guy acted like a prick the entire way about that. I just had to get that off my chest, just because like we were talking about commissioners. No wonder why the NHL is seeing a rise in popularity, because Gary Bettman is doing everything necessary to make his product enticing to the viewer's eye.
Mm-hmm.
And the NHL has gotten better. Like I look forward to playoff hockey probably more than anything, almost anything. Like March Madness conquers all, in my opinion.
Yeah,
but it's still hockey. Playoff hockey is like always must watch.
Definitely,
it is.
Definitely.
All right. While I was on the subject of bashing our good friend Rob Manfred, I also want to get into the fact that the MLB All-Star game voting has also ended phase 1. So, what does this mean? Phase 2 is beginning. It began yesterday, and I'm going to tell you who has the bye right now. So, in the American League, you have 5 first basemen that are fighting for. Oh, wait, hold on. It's the top 2. So it's the top 2 will move on to phase 2 in every position, unless there's a bye, which I think Aaron Judge and I want to say Cal Raleigh, I think got the top 2 votes. Were the 2 highest vote getters in the American League. And I know Shohei Ohtani was the top vote getter in the National League. I don't have the exact numbers right in front of me. I wish I had them. But here we go. All right, here we go. I got the numbers now. So if I go to Major League Baseball here, All-Star, game 2025. Okay, here we go. So Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh got the bye in the American League. So here's how this is going to work. The top 2 vote getters in each position will fight in a phase 2, and the person with the most votes in each position will be on the All-Star team for each league. So here's how this is going to go. We're going to predict based on who's left as to who will be in the All-Star game. So, in the battle of first base in the American League, it'll be Paul Goldschmidt of the Yankees versus Vlad Guerrero Jr. of the Toronto Blue Jays. Kev, who takes it?
Now, listen, I'm going to be biased in this and pick Paul Goldschmidt because if you've watched all the Yankees games, you know Paul Goldschmidt is one of the best first basemen in the league. Like every single time, regardless if it's an accurate throw or not, Goldschmidt just seems to get it every single time. Whether it's a bad throw and he has to pick it, whether he has to go off base, catch it, and then tag with his backhand, like he is an astounding defensive first baseman, and he hits very good. Like he was hitting 350 to start the year, and no one had him like hitting that well, especially at this age. Guerrero, on the other hand, I think he's always going to be a contender, a finalist for that. But I really hope Paul Goldschmidt gets in, so I'll say Goldschmidt.
Yeah. Alec, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking Vlad Guerrero.
I'm going to break the tie. I'm going to say Paul Goldschmidt. I know that Paul Goldschmidt has been on a little bit of a downward spiral a little bit. Like he hasn't played as well as he did earlier in the year, but the guy is still effective. I mean, this is a guy that can really play very well. Oh crap. Let me just say that. So there we go. Alec Nava doing his damnedest to keep this show on top. Um, oh no, it's Kevin. Thank you guys. I'm all over the place. My adrenaline's been on a high all day long. Paul Goldschmidt's been better than Vlad Guerrero Jr. I mean, Vlad Guerrero Jr. has been great ever since he got the extension that he needed, but I think Paul Goldschmidt just edges him out. Now, like I said, it's all based on the votes that come from Major League Baseball fans. In the battle of second baseman, it'll be Jackson Holliday of the Baltimore Orioles versus Gleyber Torres of the Detroit Tigers. Kev?
As it pains me to say this, I'm going to go Gleyber Torres on this, honestly, because I think he's vastly improved since last year when he was still a Yankee, and I think he's proven it why that, like, we shouldn't have got rid of him. He's proving it that way with a new change of scenery on the Detroit Tigers, who are the best team in the American League right now, one of the top teams in the league. So I'm going to go Gleyber Torres on this one.
You know something? I hate to sound like a homer. I'm proud of Gleyber Torres. I'm proud of him because this is a guy who looked absolutely lost in his later years as a New York Yankee. And he's come to Detroit and he's come into his own. And you know what? The Orioles, they have a couple they're on a surge as of late. They've actually been playing better. But to me, I just think Gleyber Torres has just had a better overall season. I got to go with him. Alec, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to that same reasoning. Gleyber Torres, he's improved his game in Detroit in his first year over there, and he showed why exactly the Tigers that gave him the big bucks to go play. His bat is absolutely electric.
Yeah. So I guess Gleyber Torres did a clean sweep. Next up at shortstop, it'll be the rising star Jacob Wilson of the Sacramento A's versus Bobby Witt Jr. of the Kansas City Royals. Kev, what are you thinking?
Honestly, I'm going to go with Jacob Wilson, really, because Bobby Witt Jr., we all know like what he can do, but the numbers that this rookie, Jacob Wilson, this kid is putting up, I think he's second in the league behind Judge in batting average, and he's a great defender as well. I mean, like, I would put this rookie in there and see what he can do to the best of them. So I'm going to throw a little bit of a shocker there and just say Jacob Wilson.
That's fine. I like it. I think Bobby Witt Jr. hasn't had as good a season as he did last year. Last year, he was just unbelievable. This year, he's kind of taking a little bit of a step backwards, as has the Kansas City Royals. I'm going to say Jacob Wilson. I mean, he's been second or third in batting average for a long time this season. So I like the way this kid plays. Alec?
I know I've been going with the big bats. That's been a common theme throughout between Gleyber Torres and Vlad Guerrero. What I'm having common with this selection is that a nice bat, and they're playing absolutely lights out on the teams that they're playing for. As I mentioned with the Guerrero pick, and even though I implied that Guerrero has been having a nice season, but who else has been having a nice season? Jacob Wilson. It does pay me saying him over Bobby Witt Jr. because, admittedly, I like Bobby Witt Jr.'s games and watching him play at Kansas City, but he's kind of taking a seat back and to Michael Garcia on the Kansas City lineup. But that's not a bad thing when Witt is still going smooth at the Royals. But Wilson's having a really outstanding rookie year with the Sacramento A's.
Yeah, I like the way Jacob Wilson's been playing. I think it's a clean sweep by them, Jacob Wilson. Third base, Alex Bregman of the Red Sox versus Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Guardians. Kev?
That's an easy option for me. I think Jose Ramirez. I mean, like, yes, Bregman is one of the best third basemen in the league, but like I have purely out of resentment, I'm gonna go Jose Ramirez because I think he's the better bat, and he's a switch hitter too, which Bregman isn't. And I think like he's always been a consistency whenever it comes for playing for Cleveland at third base. I pick Ramirez here.
It's amazing to me how long Jose Ramirez has been with the Guardians, producing at a level like this. He's been around for a long time. Bregman has been up and down at times this season. I just like Jose Ramirez's bat. Alec?
Oh, I feel this is no contest. Would you rather go with the big bat, or would you want to go with a reputable third baseman, but is on the wrong side of 30, or soon to be on the wrong side of 30, and we're not seeing him get any younger. Jose Ramirez. This one's easy.
Yeah. So clean sweep there. Catcher, Alejandro Kirk, Cal Raleigh. Cal Raleigh. End of discussion.
Cal Raleigh, yeah.
Well, he's not
Don't
from
even
Raleigh,
think.
but he's from Western NC. But
Yeah, he
still,
is from North Carolina. He is.
going with the man himself, Cal Raleigh.
And he's actually on pace to break Aaron Judge's home run record.
Unbelievable. He's a catcher, by the way.
Yeah, like I mentioned, catchers don't do this. Halfway through the season, catchers don't have 32 home runs in the season. Halfway through. So, but I love the way this guy's playing. And Alejandro Kirk, like, what?
Who saw him coming?
Nothing against Kirk, but I don't know why he's a finalist. Personally, I mean, I know Adley Rutschman is hurt, and I think that plays a big factor into it. But like, I wouldn't put Kirk there if I'm to be completely honest.
I wouldn't either.
I mean, he had a break. He's having a breakout year because Danny Jansen got traded away. But
correct. Yeah. All right. DH, Ryan O'Hearn, Ben Rice. Kevin, do you have Rice with you?
Yeah, in this case, I do have Rice. I think he has the better bat than O'Hearn. Even though O'Hearn, like Alec mentioned, has been the best player in terms of batting so far for the Orioles this season, but that's not a good thing. So for the Orioles, you'd rather have Henderson or Rutschman leading the way for you, not Ryan O'Hearn. But Ben Ryan, I'm very happy with what this kid is doing. This is a kid that was brought up into the Yankee system and was playing it the right way, and he's hitting the ball out of this world. He can play both first base and he's catching tonight, so he can have that in his arsenal as well. So I think Ben Rice, again, it's biased, but I think that Rice is better than O'Hearn.
I honestly like the way Ben Rice has been playing. Ryan O'Hearn, I mean, that was just a random selection from the Orioles. I hope Ben Rice gets more votes than O'Hearn. O'Hearn's had some really good at bats. He's had some really good games, but I just think Ben Rice has just been more consistent, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Alec, what are you thinking?
I'm gonna go with the dissenting opinion and say O'Hearn, but because even in the midst of what's a lost season for the Orioles, O'Hearn's one of the lone bright spots for the team.
Right.
Yeah. I said it. He should not be your best hitter because you would rather have Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman lead the way. But O'Hearn, he's one of the lone bright spots for the Orioles this year. And it's saying something.
Actually, wait, we got breaking news. This is a free agent alert. Naz Reid has signed a 5-year, $125 million contract. Let me put the breaking news thing up. All right, so Naz Reid has signed a 5-year, $125 million contract with the Timberwolves. This is going to go down as an extension. Naz Reid in the playoffs has had some bright moments, but he's a good contemporary guy to Anthony Davis, and he's from New Jersey, for those who want to matter. So, quick thoughts on this, Alec. What do you think about this?
Solid bench piece, and I'm glad that he's staying put in Minnesota on $25 million per year. That's
Kev, what do you think?
Nice production.
Yeah, Kev, what do you think?
I like it. It's a good thing to extend a guy like Naz Reid, who many Timberwolves, including the front office, had him like being a sole like centerpiece around that. Whenever they traded Cat away and getting Randall DiVincenzo has been a nice complimentary piece for them. So I think it's a good for them.
Yeah, I think this is a good move. I mean, the Timberwolves are still an up-and-coming team. They've made to the Western Conference Finals for a second year in a row. I think Naz Reid was a good part of that. Like, people are so blinded by Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert, they forget that Naz Reid and a couple other players stepped up when they needed to in the playoffs. So I think bringing one of those guys back, I think, is very beneficial.
Yeah.
All right, back to MLB. Just had to break in that breaking news for a quick second. Now we're going to go to outfield. So Aaron Judge was the top vote getter in the American League. So he gets the bye. He's automatically in. Now we have 4 options at outfield. We can only get 2. We have Javi Baez, Riley Green, 2 Detroit Tigers, Steven Kwan of the Guardians, and Mike Trout of the Angels. So, Kevin, out of those 4, you got to pick 2. Who are you picking?
Kwan for me is definitely the first one I'm taking. because he is a great outfielder with a great arm, and he's an exceptional leadoff hitter. I think him and Luis Arraez are the most like annoying guys to get out in the league because they rarely strike out. So Quan for the first spot. Second spot, I'm going to say Riley Green here because I know Javi Baez. I think he's had a resurgence of a season this year because this guy, Javi Baez, before this year, he was garbage. Absolutely garbage. He wasn't caring. He was a bad defensive shortstop, and he was a bad hitter. He was swinging everything. But now he has resurgence this year. So I think you can flip a coin on either one of them. But I choose Riley Green here because I do like versatility when it comes to the Detroit Tigers. So I'll pick Green and Quan.
Okay. So my first outfielder is Riley Green because I think the Detroit Tigers have gotten solid production from their outfield in many ways, shape, or form. But I think Riley Green I'd pick over Javi Baez just because he's been a little bit more productive. I know you mentioned Javi Baez has had a good resurgence, but I think that Riley Green's just been better. My second person is Mike Trout because Mike Trout has had a resurgence himself. I mean, for a guy who's been injury prone the last couple of years, we're finally seeing him back in the spotlight in Los Angeles for the Angels, and the Angels are only 2 games out of a wild card spot right now. Many people didn't predict this, but I think that's just the beauty of having your star player healthy. Alec?
Riley Green's the obvious one. Let's get this out the way here. So Riley Green, that's obvious here. The second one, it's more wide open. I think I like how we have different opinions here. Kev said Stephen Kwan. Matt said Mike Trout. I'm going to go with another different opinion and say Javi Baez. So I'm going to get both Tigers on here. So we all have Riley Green, but we're all different in the same one of them. Let's cap this off and say Javi Baez. What a comeback story it is for him too. Though one could say that the hitting can be attributed to success around this offensive core and it's well-rounded. And finally, he's getting his confidence back. And finally, it's paying off. The patience and with the way that he is reinvigorating himself.
Yeah. I mean, we could have 2 Tigers on here. It's very much a strong possibility.
Definitely.
Now for the National League, and I'm going to try and avoid as many Dodgers as I possibly can because there's a Dodger on every open position. Breathe, Matthew, breathe. Okay, let's do it. All right. First base, Pete Alonso versus Freddie Freeman. Kev, who are you taking?
Again, I'm not going to like either of these answers, but I'm going to pick Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman, like, he's been so good at first base this season, along with other guys in this league. And he's been hitting way better than Pete Alonso at this point. So I think Freeman.
I hate to say this. I got to go with Freddie Freeman as well. I mean, Pete Alonso has had a really solid, strong season, and he's been one of the main reasons why the Mets are doing so. We're doing so well to start the year. But Freddie Freeman, I mean, his batting average like in the 330, 340s. You can't go wrong with that. Alec?
Championship MVPs run through Canada in recent months here. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander in the NBA. Sam Bennett in the Stanley Cup Final. Freddie Freeman in the World Series. And I'm going with Freddie Freeman for this spot here. I mean, 330, 340 batting average, that's nothing to take lightly. And many discuss around Shohei Ohtani this year, Freeman's actually been the best batter on the Dodgers this year. Oof. But a 340 batting average, that's unheard of in a while. Though, in fairness, we do have historic batting averages this year. If you look to a certain guy over at the Bronx, who's at times flirted with the 400 batting average.
Yep, I remember that. Now he's far past that right now. He's far behind that, but it's okay. Tommy Edman versus Ketel Marte, Kev.
I'm going Ketel Marte, honestly,
Ooh.
because I think Ketel Marte, I think is because this is solely like because I don't want another Dodger in this situation. Tommy Edman has been fantastic, but Ketel Marte, I think like he is like one of the pieces for Arizona where like he needs to be in there every day or else they have a lower chance of winning. Tommy Edman, if you take him out, you're still on the Dodgers. You don't really need Tommy Edman to bail you out of any sort of situation. You have other guys up and down the lineup who can provide that for you. Ketel Marte is one of those players I feel like you need to have him in the lineup. I think it's his impact that I feel has impacted his team more than Tommy Edman, in my opinion. So I'm going to say Ketel Marte.
Both these men have had really strong seasons, and I'm really flirting with picking Tommy Edman, but I'm going to say Ketel Marte as well because I feel like Ketel Marte has been more of a benefit to his team than Tommy Edman has been to the Dodgers. And both these men have had really strong cases to be in the All-Star game this year, but I just think Ketel Marte's case is a little stronger. Alec?
It's 50-50 between the two of them, Ketel Marte and Tommy Edman. We know Edman, super utility man. You can insert him at second base, shortstop, center field. He can be all over the field, no matter what position that you go with. Ketel Marte, though, I feel he's having a strong campaign thus far with Arizona between him and Edman and LA. Though I'm leading Marte by a slight margin. It's that close. Also, to whoever, to that one fan there who more than crossed the line talking towards Marte, you deserve that ban. That's not right.
That was not cool. That was not cool at all. Shortstop, Mookie Betts versus Francisco Lindor. I disapprove of both these guys. Kev?
I'm going to go with Lindor here because I think Lindor, it's the same case with my Ketel Marte and Tommy Edman pick. I feel like Lindor is doing much more for the Mets than Betts is for the Dodgers because Betts was injured like for a period of time. And Lindor, like he needs to be in the Mets lineup every single day. And Lindor is also a switch hitter, so that's extra value that Mookie Betts doesn't have. And he has had quite a good batting average as well as Mookie Betts. So I'm going to say Lindor.
If only Lower Antonio was on this week's show. I'm picking Francisco Lindor. I just think that Francisco Lindor has just had better moments. He's had bigger moments and he's performed on bigger moments. I think Mookie Betts had to miss a whole series or two because he was injured, and I think that doesn't really help his case. Like I said, Francisco Lindor, both him and Alonso have been like the forefront of why the Mets are in contention to win the National League East. So I gotta go with Lindor. Alec?
Same case with Francisco Lindor. No shade to Mookie Betts. And even though he's solid as a player, Lindor has had that noticeable impact from the very start of the year for the New York Mets. I mean, he's the face of the franchise now. Even when you bring in Juan Soto on that loaded contract, Lindor is still the face of the Mets franchise. You cannot replace a guy like him on the lineup. Now, even it's on the topic of speaking of Lindor, I know it's a different name. I know it's the same name, but it's a different context. But why am I craving chocolates now?
Did you say chocolates?
Chocolates!
Chocolate!
Chocolate!
I love that episode. Okay. Next up, we got third base. Both guys have initials double M's. Manny Machado, Max Muncy. Kev?
Machado. I think that's pretty easy because Machado is a very good hitter and like he's an outstanding third baseman. I think he's like top 3 in the league third baseman. Like he has such a knack for playing the hot corner. He can feel balls from left field and the third base foul line. He's so good. And he's a big impact to his team as well. Not as much as, again, Max Muncy doesn't have the same impact as Machado does for the Padres. So I think this is pretty easy, Machado.
Laurel is going to kill me. I'm going with Manny Machado. I'm going Manny Machado just because I feel like he's the best hitter on a playoff contending team. The Dodgers are full of stars, but that doesn't mean all stars have to be in the All-Star game.
Right.
You got to spread the wealth amongst other teams.
Mm-hmm.
Alec?
This one's easy. Machado. It's not close. I mean, the Dodgers have stars up and down the lineup. The Padres, they have a clear-cut guy, and that's Machado. Okay, you can say Tatis, but Machado.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Catcher, Carson Kelly, Will Smith. Kev?
This one's a little bit tricky because I do like the way Will Smith plays. He has a great bat. He's a great framing catcher. Carson Kelly, I feel like, has been a great catcher too. And he's also, but his bat, I think, is worse than Will Smith's does. So just based on that, I'm going to go Will Smith here.
Okay. I'm going to pick Will Smith as well. I just feel like Will Smith stands out more than Carson Kelly does in this situation. I'm trying to avoid picking Dodgers, and I think I've done a good job at that, but I can't in this situation. Alec?
If I say what I think, yeah, this one's a no-brainer. Will Smith.
All right. DH, Shohei Ohtani got the bye, so the DH in the National League is set. Now, the outfield, you have to pick 3 of the following. Pete Crow Armstrong, Teoscar Hernandez, Andy Pages, Benjamin Franklin of the New York Mets, Kyle Tucker, and Ronald Acuna Jr. I think you can only imagine who Benjamin Franklin is.
Wait a minute. We all know about Juan Soto. What in the world happened to Corbin Carroll in this voting?
Yeah, where did Corbin Carroll go?
Another thing I will say, it's a disgrace how James Wood was not a finalist for this All-Star battle. Teoscar Hernandez is in there, and Juan Soto, I'm sorry, he should not be a finalist. I have to say, I'm a Yankees fan. He's a fantastic hitter, and he's on a little bit of a downtrend, but he's like peaked up in the last like 6 games. But he is not a better defender than any other finalist on this list. So if I'm going to be completely honest, James Wood should be on here instead of Soto, and it's a travesty that he's not, because he has better stats than Teoscar Hernandez even in this situation, and he's just a better overall player. He's a better defender. He may not be as great a better of a hitter as Soto, but I think he's been doing better than him now. So I can't understand why he's not in this All-Star finalist. That's a disgrace. This is why sometimes like the fan voting system sometimes gets it wrong. I think this is a case where they got it wrong for one player. But to answer the question, for my 3, I would go Pete Crow Armstrong, Kyle Tucker, and Ronald Acuna Jr. Now I know that Ronald Acuna Jr. like just came off of injury, but I've seen enough like games of him to where I'm convinced that like as long as he can stay healthy, he is that guy for the National League like for years to come. It's a shame that he's injury prone, but you make the same argument that Matt, which you did with Mike Trout. He's had a resurgent season even though he's injury prone. Ronald Acuna Jr. is hot out of the gates coming off of injury, and I think that he needs to show that more in the All-Star game. Kyle Tucker is a no-brainer. We all know what his game brings.
Oh, yeah.
And Pete Crow Armstrong, this guy, where did he come from all of a sudden? Like, he is in spring training, he was a beast, and in regular season, he continues to be a beast. A great center fielder and even a better hitter for the Chicago Cubs. And he's one of those guys who you didn't see coming, and they make the Cubs exciting to watch again since that 2016 World Series team. And I think him and Tucker definitely need to be involved in this All-Star game.
Yeah, I love the way the Chicago Cubs outfield have been. I mean, Pete Crow Armstrong and Kyle Tucker have been like the dynamic duo for the Cubs, and it's kind of amazing to see. And even Seiya Suzuki, I think it's a different position.
Oh, yeah.
But Seiya Suzuki has also been bright. The Cubs have gotten some good production all around. And it's a shame Seiya Suzuki isn't getting the respect he deserves.
Right.
But as far as my 3 outfield, this is really tough. I want to say Pete Crow Armstrong definitely won. This is a guy that has been locked in for a majority of the season, and I'm very impressed with him. Second is Kyle Tucker, because same thing, comes to the Cubs from the Astros and immediate impact. And it can clearly be felt. God damn, Andy Pages, Benjamin Franklin, Teoscar Hernandez, Ronald Acuna Jr. All right, process of elimination. I'm eliminating Juan Soto. I'm eliminating Andy Pages. So it's between Teoscar and Ronald Acuna Jr. You know what? Despite the small sample size, I'm going to say Ronald Acuna Jr. Because I feel like this guy has been lightning in a bottle since he came back, and the Braves have been an uptick as of late because of him. And I think that just shows how much of a impact he has on that team.
Absolutely.
Alec?
I feel there's no way you'll leave out the Cubs duo of Pete Crow Armstrong and Kyle Tucker on this. Someone has said it best. This is a dynamic duo between them, and they've established the foundation of this Chicago outfield. Defense, the name of the game, and Pete Crow Armstrong is a true where did he come from type of player.
Yeah.
Nobody expected this surge in the rise of Pete Crow Armstrong into a superstar on the outfield. Then the third spot gets more tricky. I am tempted to say Nick Castellanos on a tragedy. But for realistic purposes, I will say this one's very tough. Well, I am, of course, throwing out Juan Soto and Eddie Paez. Then I'm going to raise, why the hell do you leave out Corbin Carroll all of this? Because he should be on this list.
So
with the season that he's having. He's had a bounce back from what he can call a sophomore slump. And he's on the upwards trajectory on his career now. I am leaning toward, if it's not Corbin Carroll, then I'm leaning towards Teoscar Hernandez. I know Ronald Acuna Jr. had a small sample size, and he's turning around the Braves with his presence. Though, I can't go wrong with a Dodger here with Teoscar leading the way.
That's fair enough. I mean, Teoscar Hernandez has missed several games himself, but when he's on, he's on.
He is.
He's had some awesome games.
Yeah.
Where he's been the focal point of the Dodgers. Okay, so before we get into Fresh, Fine, or Fried, we're going to get into something that Kevin's been itching to talk about for a while, and that's some tennis. So, last time we talked about tennis, we were going into the French Open. We were recapping the first half of the French Open tournament.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know what happened in the French Open finals, Coco Gauff came back and beat Aryna Sabalenka 2-1. And then Carlos Alcaraz, with the comeback of his life, down 2-0 against the number one player in the world, Jannik Sinner. And he dominated him in the fifth set tiebreak to win and successfully defend his French Open championship. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this briefly is because we do have Wimbledon coming up in a couple days. So, but I do want to get to Kevin here. What did you first off make of Carlos Alcaraz's comeback versus Jannik Sinner in the French Open?
Now, would you guys be shocked to hear that I kind of saw this coming?
You saw this coming.
Absolutely. And you want to know why? The reason is because Alcaraz, clay is his best surface. That's number one. And two, we've seen this time and time again from Alcaraz against Sinner. It goes like this. On hard courts, Sinner is best Alcaraz. On clay courts, Alcaraz best Sinner. On grass, that's a coin flip, but I'm going to give the edge to Alcaraz. So we'll get to Wimbledon in a moment. But yeah, I saw the way that Sinner was playing way too complacent in that third set onwards. And Alcaraz, he wanted it more. This final was all about who wanted it more and who could outlast one another. Jannik Sinner was getting flustered in that third set. Obviously, he doesn't show as much emotion as Alcaraz does, but Alcaraz was playing to his heart's content, firing off forehands and having nice elusive slices thrown in there, drop shots. And it was making Sinner running back across the court, giving him a taste of his own medicine. And with the French Open crowd and on his best surface, I definitely saw the comeback coming. I actually would have been shocked if Sinner was going to beat him in straight sets. Now, I wouldn't have been surprised if Sinner beat him. I just would have been surprised if Sinner beat him in straight sets. But Alcaraz, as soon as I saw that third set, I'm like, he's going to win. I can sense that he's going to win. I've watched tennis since 2009. I can sense when someone's going to make like a big comeback. And I thought that was a pretty easy case with Alcaraz. Now, when we go to Wimbledon, that'll be a little bit more interesting because Alcaraz, grass, I would say he's probably his second best surface. So we'll have to see how he does. But we can get into that now.
Okay. Now, one thing I want to also touch on before we get into Wimbledon. Coco Gauff won her second Grand Slam. And if you're Aryna Sabalenka, you're breaking every tennis racket you can find because this is the second straight Grand Slam that she lost to an American. It was Madison Keys in the Australian Open and then Coco Gauff in the French Open. Mm-hmm. And this is the number one player in the world. And since the U.S. Open, she hasn't really done anything. I mean, yeah, she won the back-to-backs in the Australian Open, and hard courts are best surface. Grass, I'm not really sure what she's made of on grass, and I don't think she's really had a lot of great results on grass. But Wimbledon can be anybody's game, and we've seen over the last couple of years in Wimbledon that it favors anybody. I mean, if you have your best day, that's when you know you're going to be on top in London. But I want to get into the draw now for Wimbledon. Actually, the qualifiers have been finished up. We won't get into that. We'll get into that probably later in the tournament. But I do want to go into Wimbledon for the men's draw and reveal the top 32. I'm going to go through this really, really quickly. For the men's draw, it'll be Jannik Sinner as the top overall seed, Carlos Alcaraz number 2, Alexander Zverev is number 3, and for the purpose of Great Britain, Jack Draper is number 4, not Taylor Fritz. So Fritz is 5, Djokovic is 6, Lorenzo Musetti is 7, Holger Rune is 8, Daniil Medvedev is 9, despite losing in the first round of French Open. Ben Shelton is 10, rounding up the top 10. Alex de Minaur is 11, Francis Tiafoe 12, Tommy Paul 13. I'll go as far as that. And if we go to the draws in the quarters, excuse me, I'm talking really fast. Jannik Sinner's got an Italian in his draw to start off. He's got Luca Nardi, and then Tommy Paul's is in that quarter as well. Ben Shelton's in that draw. Riley Opelka is in the draw too. When it comes to Sinek's quarter, for Draper's corner, he's got Alexander Bublik. He's got de Minaur. He's got Djokovic in that quarter, and then I guess you could say this is Zverev's quarter. This is where Taylor Fritz lies, and we talked about Fritz after he lost in the first round of the French Open as a top 4 seed. Now he's not hosting his own quarter anymore. He's got to go through Zverev most likely. No real standouts in the third quarter other than Fritz. And then when we get to the fourth quarter, which is Alcaraz's quarter, Tiafoe is in there. Rune is in there. You can also and Alcaraz in there. Andrei Rublev is in there, although he's been on a little bit of a downward slump. Oh my God. Alec, I'm going to share some breaking before we get into tennis. Alec broke this news in our little chat, so I'm going to give Alec the floor for just a little bit of a second. Alec, go ahead.
Sonny Gray has just pitched a complete game in just 89 pitches in the win for the St. Louis Cardinals today. One of the best pitching performances that we'll ever see. 11 strikeouts, no walks, no earned runs, just 1 hit allowed.
That's crazy.
That's stellar.
That's really
good. That is a stellar performance.
Amazing.
89 pitches. My God, that's efficient.
Yeah.
Wow. Just had to share that really quick. All right. So, Kev, back to the quarters for a second for the men's draw. Who do you think has the toughest quarter draw looking at this? Would it be Sinner? Would it be Zverev? Would it be Alcaraz? Or would it be Draper? Who has the toughest quarter?
I would probably say Zverev, because didn't you say that Fritz was going to be in this quarter too?
Yes.
Probably him if I had to make a guess, because Fritz, grass is one of his better surfaces aside from hard court. We knew that like he wasn't going to do anything in clay, even though he tried his hardest. Grass is a different story. I feel like he can definitely contest it with Zverev, because grass is not Zverev's best surface. Zverev is more of a hardcore player. Grass is more Fritz's game. So I see Zverev having probably the toughest quarters out of all of them. So I would say that, yeah.
And I'm assuming Sinner's going to breeze through his first quarter, I'm assuming.
Probably, yeah. I would say he would probably get at least to the semis, if not the final, to be perfectly honest.
And it's kind of annoying because, honestly, I'm looking at the draw. Lorenzo Musetti, Tommy Paul, and Ben Shelton are like the only people standing his way in his quarter.
Yeah.
That's not really saying a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Now, it's the women's draw. So, in the women's draw, your top 4, based on quarters. Arena Sabalenka is number 1. Coco Gauff, the defending French Open champion, is number 2. Jessica Pegula is number 3. Jasmine Paolini is 4. Kim Win Zhang is 5. Madison Keys 6. Mira Andreeva 7. Iga Swiatek 8. Paula Badosa 9. And rounding out the top 10 is Emma Navarro, who also got upset in the first round pretty easily in the French Open. Now we're going to go to the draws. Sabalenka's quarter. Paula Badosa is in there. Madison Keys is in there. Alina Svitolina is in there. So a couple of really good names. Now we go to Paolini's corner. This is where you'll find Amanda Anisimova, who's made a bit of a surge as of late. She's 13th in the world right now in the women's draw. And then you'll also find Schneider. And this is where also Kim Win Zhang lies. This is Paolini's corner. Bottom half, we go to Jessica Pegula's quarter, a woman who seems to struggle later in tournaments. Pegula has Andreeva in this corner. She has Emma Navarro in this quarter. And that's pretty much her toughest competition from there. And then we go to Coco Gauff's corner. This is where Iga Swiatek lies. This is where Elena Rybakina lies. This is where Kasatkina lies. This is where Sophia Kenin, who could be a dark horse, lies. This is where some tougher opponents, I wouldn't say world beaters, but there's definitely some scrappy players on here. Who has the toughest quarter, would you say, Kev?
Definitely Gauff in this scenario. I mean, you mentioned all those players can beat Gauff. I mean, maybe if he has a bad day, but I'm just saying one thing. Sabalenka better hope that she doesn't meet Keys again and lose to her again, because that would be devastating and just a slap in her face for losing to her in the Australian Open. Maybe she gets another crack at her, but she better not lose against her if she ends up facing her. I'll just say that.
All I'm going to say is right now, if Arina Sabalenka loses a 3rd consecutive Grand Slam to an American, the city of London better be careful because she might light the city on fire.
Uh-oh.
She might. It's like that scene from Office Space where the guy wanted a piece of cake and he passed the cake and I want to set the office on fire. And eventually he does.
Yeah. Great movie.
Just too many. What happened?
Great movie, by the way.
I love that movie. Oh no. Speaking of Office Space, if Arina Sabalenka does lose, she'll redo that scene from Office Space where they're destroying the printer.
Yeah, probably.
Only she'll do it with a tennis racket. She'll take her tennis racket.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, I love that movie so much. But if you had to make your early pick in the men's draw, Kev, who do you think wins the men's draw?
Now, I'll say that if there was any Grand Slam this year that Novak Djokovic was going to win number 25, it's this one. Because this is his second best surface, aside from hard court. This is also the tournament where he's won his second most Grand Slams.
Yes.
Australian Open, he's won 10 of his 24 in the Australian Open. In Wimbledon, he's won 7 of his 24 here. So 17 of them alone from the Australian Open and Wimbledon alone. So clay was probably his worst surface, and he was still able to get to the semifinals at 37 years old.
Yeah.
And Wimbledon, I think, is going to be a completely different story because this is probably his best chance to win another Grand Slam. Because when the U.S. Open comes, I feel like he'll get far, but he won't even get to the final in the U.S. Open. But Wimbledon, I have a feeling that he's going to win his Grand Slam, his 25th one in Wimbledon. But if he's going to do that, I think he might have to verse Sinner doing it in the final. Because I think that here's an interesting here's what I love about matchups in tennis, right?
Yeah,
so I feel like in all the Grand Slams this year, it's going to be one of 3, maybe 5 guys. The 2 I'm going to leave out are Zverev and Medvedev. The other 3 are Sinner, Alcaraz, and Djokovic. Now, Sinner, right now, he's better than Djokovic, but Alcaraz is better than Sinner, but Djokovic is better than Alcaraz. So if Djokovic meets Alcaraz, I think Djokovic beats him in 4 sets. And actually, Djokovic and Alcaraz, I don't know if you saw it, he just finished a practice set earlier today with Alcaraz, and it ended up being a 5-5 tie first set. They didn't play a full set. Yeah, but if you versus Sinner, now, even though he lost in straight sets to Sinner in the French Open, it was closer than what the score indicated, even though it was straight sets. You saw that Djokovic only was able to break Sinner, I think, only the one time. And that's actually improvement as far as I'm concerned, because the last couple of times that he faced him, I don't think he broke him once. He was struggling to return his serve, and he was struggling to make quick service games on his end. I think he's going to be much sharper when it comes to grass, because clay is a much different surface where you slide all over the place, gets everywhere. In Wimbledon is the only tournament left where you have where you can challenge calls.
Yes.
Because Australian Open and in the US Open, it's automated line calls. In the French Open, they do it the old-fashioned way where you can just look at where the ball landed.
Right, you can challenge, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So Wimbledon, the challenge system comes into play. So I feel like that could bode better in like this case, especially for Djokovic, because if anyone has a good eye for where the ball's landed, it's him. And I think that on grass, it's definitely going to be a test to see like how well like he can manage this English crowd, because he's been a good crowd favorite in Wimbledon. And again, Sinner, this is not his best surface, but it's one of his best surfaces. His best surface is still hard court. And I remember the match where Djokovic, this is before Sinner was the best player in the world. This was Djokovic was versing Sinner in Wimbledon. I think it was like a few years ago.
Yeah,
where
something like that.
Lost the first 2 sets to Sinner, and then came back and won that in 5 sets. I think he might have to do a similar situation with that again if he faces him, but he has to be able to break his serve early. That's the big key here, because if he can't do that, it's going to be the same thing as the French Open. But I think the better surface and grass is definitely going to help Djokovic, and he might be able to get revenge on Alcaraz for Alcaraz beating him in the final and breaking that like whatever 10-year streak of him winning there. So I think this is going to be a big comeback tournament to that type of deal for Djokovic. And I have the feeling he's going to win the number 25 here. Now, I could be wrong. It could be Sinner Alcaraz again. But I have the feeling that this is going to be the time when Djokovic does it.
If we get Sinner Alcaraz again, that's going to be theater. I swear to God, that's going to be theater. Okay. I would ask you about the women really quick, but we do got to get into Fresh Fine or Fry, and Alec is on the hot seat for that one. So, obviously, for those of you who don't know how Fresh Fine or Fry works, Alec will come up with a 2.5-minute take. I will time him, and at the end of his take, we're on either Fresh Fine or Fry, meaning fresh meaning good, fine meaning okay, fried meaning bad. Alec can say whatever he wants. It could be a sports-related take, it could be a non-sports-related take, all in a 2.5-minute period. Alec, are you ready?
Yes.
Go.
All right. I'm tired of fans saying that Florida teams are winning because of no state income taxes. Because nobody was pointing up this issue before the Florida Panthers were good. They were a laughing stock before they became a perennial Stanley Cup contender. And now that people want to point out about no state income taxes, that's the reason why they're good? That is the reason why they're good? You got to be kidding me. They had the best general manager in the league in Bill Zito and one of the best scouting offices over the front office. They identified the talent from other teams. They know what players want to get to fit in with this culture. They know what players they want to get so as to fit in and with the team that they're building on to make them a perennial Stanley Cup contender. That's the reason why they got after Matthew Tkachuk. They got after guys like Tim, Sam Reinhart, Sam Bennett, and also the other players to fit in the mold. Gustav Forsling, a waiver claim, got into the mix here. The best front offices, they scout talent from the other teams. And they identified them and so as to fit into the system and to acclimate them onto a perennial playoff contention. Other teams need to take notes from the Panthers front office so as to how to run a playoff team and how it should be run. We look at teams on how they're handing out contracts and how they're going to mesh it all out. The Toronto Maple Leafs, I can argue they were built incorrectly. They had out the big bucks to the big players. We know Mitch Marner is as good as gone. John Tavares, he decided to stay with a massive pay cut. 4 years, just under $4.5 million per. Good signing, though. Utah, they got JJ Peterka from Buffalo. They're intent on building a playoff team, and they just extended him. Buffalo, they want to make the playoffs, but what are you doing by just getting Michael Kessler and Josh Doe with no draft picks in return?
30 seconds.
Here's the thing. Good teams, they have an established culture. The Florida Panthers have an established culture. It's not the state income taxes are why they're doing this. You have to have a clear-cut front office that has a clear-cut plan that can make a playoff team. End of story.
Wow. 10 seconds to spare. Very, very good. Kevin, what do you think? Fresh, fine, or fried?
Fresh as Florida orange juice. I say that's a fresh take by Alec. And yeah, I think that goes for any sport, not just the NHL. I mean, like, I think that people are just salty that the Florida Panthers and just Florida teams in general have just been like very good teams for the past 5 years for Stanley Cup contenders. I think that, yes, in order to have a good team, you need to have a winning culture. And I think that goes for any sport, regardless if it's hockey, football, baseball, or what have you. I think you definitely need to have that. And you need to get players who are going to buy into that culture. So absolutely a fresh take.
Yeah, and one of those players being Sam Bennett, who the Panthers just recently signed to an 8-year, $8 million per deal. That's huge.
Deserved.
Yeah. All right. Fresh as well. I've never heard anything about Florida residents saying, "Oh, we're good because of the income taxes or lack thereof." If people are saying that, that's just silly. Like, where I know Florida has no state income taxes, but what does that have to do with sports? What does that have to do with your sports teams being good? I mean, yeah, you can probably negotiate with athletes better because they don't want to come to a state that has state income taxes or high state income taxes. But just because they have no state income taxes doesn't mean you don't go there. Like, if that makes any sense, you can go to a team that's a contender and that's taking have income taxes, and you would still want to go. But Florida is like, it's one of those states where everything's made for you financially over there. And Florida, God bless them, because I feel like they care more about hockey in Florida than they do any other sport. It just looks that way. But the state income tax part of it all, I mean, don't throw state income taxes into this nonsense. So I think it's fresh because I've never heard of anything like this. And I think the fact that people are saying this is it's a joke. It's silly. Like,
it's jealousy.
Yeah.
It's jealousy. That's all it is. Like, what does the state income tax have to do with performance on the field?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. That's why I think it's really silly about that. But I love the take and your enthusiasm put it. So I'm gonna say fresh. All right. So what's new? We're gonna put it into it right now. So John, I wish was here for this. Last episode, for those of you who saw, John is currently talking things out with his boss of the radio station that he's working with right now in Seattle, Washington, to get us over the airwaves in Seattle, Washington. Now, if you saw the last episode, you saw my reaction. It was goddamn priceless because my mouth almost hit my bed. It was literally at that point where I was like, and it would have gone lower had John asked me if I was okay. But it was all good stuff. And, I wish John was here. We miss him a lot. He's obviously like a huge part of this team, and I hope he gets better for speedy recovery for next episode. But for those of you who want to tune in to us, we'll give you more information about the radio station as it comes along. Like, as soon as we get more information, we'll pass it on. But that was the only indication that we have of the show, is that it's going to go to the Seattle station, to a radio station in Seattle over their airwaves. We don't know the station ID. We don't know the station name. We just know it's going to be his radio station in Seattle. John will probably give us more details as time goes on. And maybe when he comes back next episode, he'll probably give us more details. I know he told me about the antenna, and that's great. But for people who know about radio stations like myself or Kevin, having a radio antenna put in takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
So this might take a little bit, but you know what? They say it's always worth it in the end. And that's what this is going to be. But on top of that, if you want to follow us on our socials and what we're doing, you can follow us on Instagram at 4SQ Sports on Instagram. You can follow us on our WordPress site. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on our YouTube channel. Those are our 4 main socials. Now, if someone wants to take over and create a TikTok account for this show, this program, go ahead. It just can't be me. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I know jack about TikTok. I literally had it for a day, and I was like, what is this? What is this? Now, Kevin actually once upon a time put Yankee rants on his TikTok.
I did, only for the 2023 season, because that was a god-awful season.
That was the most excruciating season of my entire life as a Yankee fan.
Yep.
And I also, those of you who also didn't notice on Instagram yesterday, I did put a bonus content video episode that we recorded a couple weeks ago. Now that the NBA playoffs are over, and it is Alec reliving his Bean Boozled punishment. Now, if those of you want to watch that, that's on the channel. It's there. You'll actually be kind of surprised what happens in the episode. Kevin and I were actually very shocked about what transpired. And I can only imagine Alec's taste buds have kind of improved since then.
Oh, funnily enough, I kept it.
You kept it?
Yeah, I kept it.
The onions of the devil.
That's the classic one-liner.
There's a sneak preview right there.
The onions of the devil.
That is a sneak preview of what's to come. But oh god, that was awesome. You guys see the rest of the video to see what transpires.
Don't forget, John's got to do that too next time.
Oh, John has to do that as well. So maybe when his throat's fine, we'll have to remind him. Oh god. So during these final few minutes, I do want to say a couple things, and this is actually kind of big. Like I said, you can follow us on our Instagram pages, which is at Sirianni Says Sports. That's my Instagram. Alec is at AlecNava19, correct?
On Instagram.
On Instagram, Kevin.
Kevin ZPXP for all of my broadcast only content. I'm going to post more for football and stuff probably next month or so.
That should be fun. That should be really, really fun. And like I said, if I made a mistake here or there with the fonts and everything, it's literally because I'm on an adrenaline high. Like I said, when you meet Michael Kay, who's been your childhood broadcaster since you were like 10 years old, you can only imagine how you feel standing next to him and actually talking to him. But it was all a phenomenal event. Bar A is awesome. If you don't know where Bar A is, it's in Lake Como, New Jersey, which is in Belmar. They give out 50-cent beers on Tuesday nights. So if you want to be degenerate, I shouldn't say the word degenerate, but degenerate drinker, and you want to consume beers for 50 cents.
Like an LSU fan?
Oh,
yeah, like that.
I can only imagine how they're feeling after that College World Series title.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
The
yeah.
Freud.
Oh, man. Well,
But it's called Beat the Clock. That's what it's called. So a lot of college kids go down to Bar A for their 50-cent beers every Tuesday night. Obviously, when they get out of school, they want to do whatever they want to do. And also, one last reminder. Again, we will not be recording an episode next week on Friday, the 4th of July. Why? Simple. It's the 4th of July. So we will record an episode on Saturday, July 5th for episode 5. The agenda will be it'll be a day behind, but that's because we have an extra day to plan ahead. But that is all the major stuff that we have to go into before we conclude this episode with a minute left to spare. From Kevin Zelskovis, I'm Matt Sirianni. God bless you all. Thank you so much for tuning in today's episode of Foursquare Sports. We are very blessed to have you all here. And I didn't forget it. If you know someone who's 60 years or over, please support your elders because like SpongeBob SquarePants once said, old people are the greatest. They're full of wisdom and experience. But I love that quote. I could go on for SpongeBob episodes all day long. But God bless you all. We'll have more guests on. And now that baseball is in full swing, no pun intended, we'll get into Little League World Series stuff. We'll get into more MLB stuff. I'm going to talk to Jake Cardinelli about him coming on. He wants to come on. But that's all for future plans. This has been Four Square Sports, ladies and gentlemen, which has been Sports at Score. Take care, everybody. God bless.